So this is what I got when I asked ChatGPT O1 to generate a prime number sieve with the elliptical curve mechanism. So I'm going to dump the file in here, and then I'm going to jump over to the Wikipedia page, and I'm going to grab a big prime that I know it's prime. Copy that and paste that as an argument. And it fails. And it fails because it's got the import statement wrong. So I'm going to jump into the file and I'm going to fix the import statement. And then it's going to fail again because even though it realized that it had the right function and I got it imported correctly, it had one of the parameters named wrong. So I'm going to fix that so the thing will actually run, and I will run it again. And now if you notice, it fails because it found that number is a factor of itself. So it's utterly misunderstanding how the output of the thing works and what it's supposed to do with it, because it's actually a prime number because its only factor is itself. So it's not composite, it's prime, but it doesn't understand the output of the library. So it ran the right library at least once it had a little help, but it doesn't understand what to do with it. So I'm going to call that a fail. So jumping over to the CodeCrafter's HTTP server challenge that I did with the other 4 AIs, this one's more annoying because I can't actually use an editor with it. I've got to copy and paste back and forth between the web page and the editing the files, which is kind of annoying. And as you'll see here, I can't even put carriage returns in the prompt. I keep trying to stop. I keep trying to get it to let me create on the fly the response I'm going to give. And it won't let me do that. I can't return, I can't oft return anything. It just keeps submitting it. So what I end up doing is creating a file with all the instructions in it, writing that all out as a file, saving that file, dumping that into the keyboard using ppcopy, which is a Mac utility, which is actually really useful, but a lot of people don't know about it. And then pasting the whole thing into ChatGPT O1's webpage. And then from there, taking the output from the webpage and then dumping that back into a file. And that back and forth got really freaking old. I'm guessing there's some way to do it that doesn't involve me having to write my own code or something. I'm guessing that at some point in the not too distant future, something like Cursor is going to start using this as allowing this to be used as a backend. Although with Cursor, you're never really clear exactly which backend you're using. So I wanted to make sure I was doing this one directly on against the web interface. So that way I was absolutely sure that the answers I was getting were from the new O1 preview model instead of some other model. Because it was very important that if people were asking me, hey, what do you think of the new O1 model? I wanted to make absolutely sure that the answer I was giving them was actually really specifically tied to that O1 model. So I'm going to tell it, this is starting with the server bit. I'm going to grab all this stuff. If I could figure out how to use a mouse. It's always great doing things live. All right, copy this. There we go. I'm not really sure exactly how much the grammar really matters here, but in later challenges, I didn't put quite so much of my own text in there and found out that it worked okay. So now I filled out the instructions. I'm going to save this file. I'm going to dump that into the clipboard. And then I'm going to jump over to the O1 page, and I'm going to paste that in and submit it. I am not going to speed this up for you because I want you to see exactly how long it takes for this thing to think. It's not quick. It takes a much, much longer than the previous ones, which were slow enough. So this is kind of irritating, but you know, it does give better answers. So I mean, I can forgive it for that. And it takes less time than it would have taken me to type all that out myself. So now I can just delete everything that was in that file, dump all the new stuff in, and then create a git commit. I'm going to grab, I had made the instructions in the directory above this, and I decided I was going to stick them in a prompts directory. And that way, the Git repository, which here in the not too distant future, I'm going to have a members only video where I'm going through all of this code. And when that happens, I will put a link to the repo that's got all of the different answers that all of the different AIs gave when I was doing this challenge. It will be on the Internet of Bugs GitHub page. If you don't want to be a paying member, but you still want to look at the code, you can just go to github.com/Internet of Bugs. I think is what the page is. You should be able to find it. And there'll be a repository there that's got all of the different AI's responses to all the different challenges, each in different subdirectories in one repo. So you'll be able to see what they actually spit out, so you don't have to read them off the video screen. Yay, test pass. We're still in the very easy stage. The very last of the challenges that I do today with this AI is marked as a medium, which really, I don't know that that counts as medium, but it's certainly true that all of the ones leading up to that are either very easy or easy. So even though O1 does better than all of the other AIs that I tested with, it does make one regression right at the end, although honestly it's a understandable kind of regression. But all of this code, all of this let's test a HTTP server thing with really simple broken down step-by-step instructions, all of that is very much the kind of thing that an AI should be very well suited to be able to do, because there should have been a billion different open source web servers in its training set. There should have been, I'm exaggerating, but a lot. There should have been a lot of discussions about how HTTP servers work. It's very much not a thing that you have to come up with anything new to think about, to figure out. You just have to regurgitate stuff that's already been in your training set. So this is exactly the kind of problem that an AI ought to do, and the fact that that several of the AIs were having trouble with it, and that Copilot was so bad at it, really just surprised me. But the good news is now that this one's decent at that, although the mechanism of the copy and paste is irritating, but it means that there's a lot more interesting questions that I can start asking. And I'll be making some more videos about that. I really kind of want to speed up the thinking process because it's very annoying just sitting here and watching it think, but it's actually really part of understanding how the thing works, because it's so slow. And I read an article, or at least some stuff online, that indicates that the thing that it says that it's doing there when it says it's, sitting to the server or whatever, is not actually what it's doing. It's just some text there to try to keep you entertained, or make you think that it's not dead and it's still working on something. So got that test pass. For the record, the CodeCrafter's webpage, it doesn't have a dark mode, and I have a utility that's making it dark, because I've had some people on the channel who've complained when I've had bright white web pages on the channel, and sometimes I can't avoid it, but in this case I can. But what it means is, with that party thing where all the little confetti goes up, if I wasn't running the thing that hacks it up to dark mode, that actually looks a lot better. So that's an artifact of the fact that I'm running in dark mode. And it doesn't have a real dark mode, so I'm running in a hacked Firefox extension that makes everything seem like it's dark mode even when it's not, but it's not perfect. The following. Here we are, typos and all. Paste that in here. Hit submit. Wait for an inordinate amount of time. That felt like it was a lot longer than 12 seconds. I believe it was only 12 seconds, but subjectively it feels a lot longer to me. It feels like it takes forever. Paste that in, should be able to dump this into Git now, have it run the tests. It's actually a really clever mechanism. I realize I've given people an affiliate link, and that, I stand to actually make a little bit of money if people actually go and join CodeCrafters, but I have to admit, it's actually really clever. I kind of wish I'd thought of it. I did a thing kind of like that a long time ago, where basically I taught a class where I started with a GitHub repository, and I had everybody in the class fork the GitHub repository and then submit all of their homework as pull requests. So it was kind of a less automated version of kind of what CodeCrafters is doing, but what they're doing is really clever. And they didn't pay me to say that, although, like I said, they did give me a affiliate link that if people sign up with it, I will make some money, but not a ton, but some. And, I appreciate that, but don't do it don't do it unless you think it's actually going to be useful to you. But I actually think it's kind of cool. Dump this back into the clipboard. Paste this into O1. Don't worry, we've only got like 10 more minutes to do the next, 3 challenges, 4 challenges? I forget how many there are. Yeah, this one, that, like I said, there's going to be another video, a members only deep dive video where I go through the code that it created. But the code it did was way better than any of the other four. Right off the bat, or very, very early at least, it put a try except block in, which is good. Unlike the try except block that JetBrains did, it actually said, oh, okay, some error happened, so I'm going to return a HTTP 500 internal error, which is exactly the kind of thing that it ought to do. Nobody told it to do that, but it's great that it thought to do that. Thought's not really the right word, but it's great that enough HTTP servers do that kind of thing that the pattern popped out and it put that in this one too. Because that's really the way it should have been done by all four of them in the first place. And the other thing is, unfortunately, the CodeCrafter stuff, and I've had a couple of back and forths with them about this, but the CodeCrafter stuff does not do much in the way of forcing errors in your code and checking to see that the errors are handled correctly. Very much like most of the rest of the industry. It's very much focused on people getting the happy path right. And I get why that's the case. And I know that from personal experience and being a team lead and whatnot, that the average programmer really just doesn't want to think about having to do error handling. They just want to go, oh, cool, it worked. It worked the first, the happy path works. I'm done. And you're not done. Or he shouldn't be done. And if we didn't have that attitude in this industry, we would be, I think, quite a bit better off. But I don't know. Personally, I mean, it's a combination of the fact that, one, I've spent a lot of time getting woken up in the middle of the night because code was bad. And so I have a thing that bugs irritate me more than they do most people. But also, a lot of the really interesting stuff, the interesting puzzle solving in programming, is figuring out how that thing that you didn't think could go wrong that way went wrong, and what can you do to fix it. So I actually find the bug hunting and troubleshooting part of it kind of interesting. I didn't at first. When I started out, it was like, I don't want to think about this. But once I got where I had seen a couple of interesting bugs, and it was like, wait, how the hell did that happen? And then you go dig into it and you're like, oh. I saw a cartoon once. I don't know where it came from. But it was something like the stages of debugging. And one of them is, that can't happen. And the next one is, how the hell did that happen? And then the third one is, how did this ever work at all? Let me copy this. No, I don't need to go that far. I spend too much time trying to figure out exactly what of the instructions I should give it and what I shouldn't give it. I don't know how confused it would be by, the hint section at the bottom or that kind of thing. So I try to be careful about what I get it to work on. It'd actually be an interesting experiment to just dump the whole thing in there and see what happens. I might do that one of these days, but that would not really be a indicative of how well it does or doesn't do code. So, which is really what I'm trying to find out here. I'm glad its code is better, but waiting on it is irritating. And this is the one where it gives me an error. So this is the first regression that it introduced. And I cut out a block here because I was basically looking at some stuff and trying to decide if I had done something wrong or if it had done something wrong, and if there was exactly what had happened. And then I figured out or decided, okay, probably it's not that I did something wrong. It's that, it did something wrong. So I'm just going to give it the error and see what it does with it. And sure enough, pretty simply, it said, oh, okay, I know what to do with that, and fixed it. Then one of those things where I'm like trying to decide how I'm going to let it know what counts as an error and what doesn't, because it doesn't see the formatting, right? So I never know if it's going to realize like what's code and what's not code. So I always try to put things in triple ticks, which is the markdown syntax for, a block of code. I'm assuming that there will be a bunch of the triple ticks mean literal code in its training set, so it knows what to do with it, but which has seemed to be the case so far. But a lot of this is just kind of superstition. You try to change your prompts up the way it seems like it's behaved before, but there's no real... not only is there no real explanation of exactly how the prompts are supposed to be used, but I don't think anybody actually knows. It's just a lot of trial and error, and if what you do gets you the result that you wanted, then yay, you must have done it right. So when in the other video, I'm going to have a diff, so you actually see what the difference is. At this point, I didn't actually know what it had changed. I just dumped everything in there and then ran it and saw if it got better or worse. But I've got all the Git repo stuff, so I'll break down diffs of exactly what each AI changed on each step and all that kind of stuff. Yay, we're done. Thank you for watching.